Says, decide whether each table could represent a proportional relationship. If the relationship could be proportional, what would be the constant of proportionality? So remember that if we have a proportional relationship, we know that we can multiply one side of the table times the same thing to tell us the values in the other side of the table, and that can work in either direction. We could multiply distance to listener times something to get sound, or we could multiply sound level times something to get distance to listener. So I want to start thinking about what I would be multiplying 5 by to get 85. And since I know that 85 is my product, I know that I can divide my product by my factor, 85 divided by 5, which is equal to 17. And I know that 5 times 17 equals 85. So if this were a proportional relationship, 10 times 17 would be equal to 79. 20 times 17 would be equal to 73, and so on. But when I look at this table, I see that 10 times 17 is not 79. And in fact, 10 times 7.9 is actually what's equal to 79. So I can see that in this table, I do not have a proportional relationship. And the reason why is because there is no constant of proportionality. Or in other words, there is no number that I am multiplying all of these numbers by to get these numbers. There is not a proportional relationship. There is no constant of proportionality. So to solve question B, you would do the exact same thing, and you can pause this video to work on question B. You need to figure out whether or not you can multiply every row in the first column times something to get each row in the second column. And again, if you wanted to multiply in the other direction, you could do that as well, right? You could do 1.49 times something equals 16. Either way, the numbers should be the same, and if these numbers are not identical, you know that it's not a proportional relationship. So you can pause to do question B. And let's take a look at page 2. So again, you could have paused to do question B. We skipped question 2 in class, and we focused instead on questions 3 and 4. Let's start with 3. A rabbit and turtle are in a race. Is the relationship between distance traveled and time proportional for either one? If so, write an equation that represents the relationship. Well, let's look at the turtle's run first. I noticed right off the bat that I think it's going to be easier to multiply time times something to get distance, just because 1.08 times a really small number is going to be equal to 2. So I'm going to start thinking about 2 times something equals 108. 7.5 times something is 405, and so on. And I'm just going to use inverse operations, right? I know that 2 is my factor and 108 is my product, so I can divide 108 divided by 2, which equals 54. And I can always check that. 2 times 54 does equal 108. And let's see if it works for the next row. 7.5 times 54, and this is totally the type of question that you could be using a calculator for. 54 times 7.5 does equal 405. And the same is true for the other entries in the table. I can always multiply time by 54 to tell me the correct distance in meters. And so my constant of proportionality is 54. Now notice that in the directions, it asks us to write an equation to show the relationship between time and distance. And I know that I can represent both with a variable we'll call time t and distance d. I'm multiplying time t times 54 every single time. So 54 times t equals d, which is distance. Now, that means the turtle is yes, a proportional relationship, but what about the rabbit? Well, I know that 1 times 800 equals 800, but does 5 times 800 equal 900? Well, 5 times 800 is 400, so no, it does not, which means automatically, just right off the bat, I know that it is not a proportional relationship because there is no constant of proportionality. I can't multiply times the same number to move from right to left in the table. And if I had tried going from left to right instead of from right to left, I would have ended up with the same answer. There would still be no constant of proportionality. All right, in question 4, which is going to be slide 4 if you're working online, it just asks you to identify the constant of proportionality. We know that these relationships are proportional. They're all definitely proportional relationships because it's asking us to find the constant of proportionality. So 2 times something equals 14, 5 times something equals 35, find that missing number. And you want to do the same thing for this table, for this table, for this table, and you're filling in the constant of proportionality in these blanks. And you can check your work for this question by looking underneath this video. There's going to be 4 numbers in a row, and that will be the answers to this blank, this blank, this blank, and this blank. It's just underneath the description in YouTube. If you have questions about any of these problems, be sure to send Ms. Kinez an email. These should be very helpful in studying for the test because the test is going to include very similar questions.